on down to the cafeteria to grab yourself a hot slice.
Hey everyone, so today is our first video podcast. We're new at this, so let us know in the comments if we can do anything better. But anyways, today's guest is Toadking. He's the creator of the MTF Field codes, as well as the creator of the Foundation After Midnight podcast, which basically is very similar in tone to Welcome to Night Vale, and it basically chronicles the day-to-day events of an SCP facility through the premise of a workplace radio show. So anyways, I hope you guys like it, and thanks for listening. Bye. Starting off, we got Toadking, Eric Stover. You're actually the first SCP person I've met, like in the flesh, in person.
Yeah.
It's a kind of surreal experience.
And I was gonna say, you're one of the select few. I've got, I think maybe 3 people now who I've met in person from the SCP community. But like, it's
I'm
strange
curious,
meeting people in person offline.
who have you met like so far?
So Drew Bear.
Okay.
Actually, I was visiting a friend of mine, and I happened to like tweet that I was in his city, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you want to meet up?" And I'm like, "All right, I can do this."
That's cool.
Because, especially with like a staff person, like I'm more like people who are more established in the community. I'm a little bit more comfortable meeting up with people like that.
Yeah.
Like I've tweeted out like I'm at this convention or that convention, but no one ever finds me because I'm just kind of wandering around. There was another staff member, I forget her name, connected with me off of Twitter because she saw I was in New York. So, and then we met up at the Patreon.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was like I think it was meant to be like networking or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a nice hoodie out of it. So.
Yeah.
Still wear it.
I think I've got like a notebook from that or something.
Oh, and I do want to give a quick shout out to your kick-ass pins. This is not like a sponsored thing. I genuinely, this camera, I love these pins. Like,
old one.
This is like pure metal. It's not like some crappy, shitty little thing. I've worn it a couple times. No one has yet put out a comment. I sadly haven't caught an SCP fan in the wild, at least with the pin.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, like that's the thing. Like, I kind of really enjoyed making the pins and the t-shirts and stuff I sell because I love the idea of it getting out there more in the world. Like, there's so many fans, but you can't tell somebody's a fan of something unless they're wearing some swag of it.
Yeah.
So like, I've got my pins I sell. I one time had a kid come into my day job and he saw the sticker I had on my water bottle, which was the Unkillable Lizard softball team logo I had.
Yeah.
He's like, SCP 682, yeah. And I'm like, SCP. And I'm like, do you know the FAM Radio podcast? He's like, what's that? And I'm like, okay. Well, cool.
So I feel in that one. I'm like, what's for Foundry? Yeah. Do you know Volgan? That's like the first thing I usually hear.
I still get people who like comment on like my, one of the episodes and will be like, have you heard about Lord Bung?
Yeah.
He's this guy making SCP animations. You should join up with him. I'm like,
it's not like he's never been in an episode or anything.
Yeah. You need to listen a little longer, kid.
Yeah.
You'll recognize something.
That was actually, yeah. So, I mean, that's one of my questions, but like, how'd you make that happen? How'd you get in touch with Bung?
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to like work with a lot of the SCP community for a while, but it's just kind of like, there's my podcast coming out so infrequently, but also just like so often the episode is just kind of like talking about news happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there aren't always a lot of parts to be filled. But I had reached out to him and I definitely was like, okay, well, Connor is like an established character, like for the Vulcan, I'd have to like figure out a character for him to play. Yeah. Which, I'm not saying that's, easier or harder. I'm just saying like, I got to figure that out. But for Lord Bung, I was like, okay, well, Connor is clearly going to have to be in an episode somehow. And he's clearly going to just like pop in as himself. I practically felt like you almost didn't need to like name him because most of the fans know that character. Yeah. So, yeah, that was cool. Reach out to him, he's real cool.
I mean, so for people who don't know about your podcast, how would you kind of explain it?
Foundation After Midnight Radio is a radio broadcast from within the Foundation, kind of for personnel, by personnel. Kind of my running kind of theme with it all is that if you're someone who works with like nightmares, monstrosities, and horrors, day in and day out, eventually that just becomes like another Monday. It just becomes a lot of paperwork. So DJ Skip will broadcast about how there's a time anomaly. So this week, like Wednesday is canceled. Please skip right from Tuesday to Thursday. He'll talk about, the sun disappearing and the world ending, and he won't even bat an eye.
Yeah.
I had someone actually write for the Christmas gift exchange. They did a little short story involving DJ Skip, and they actually worked in an SCP that's some sort of virus that makes you unable to express negative emotions. And they had it that DJ Skip had that, and I really loved it. The only problem is there's no cure for that one. Like, you just die. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure if I can use this, but
yeah.
It was definitely a fun explanation of why he's always so damn chipper.
It kind of reminds me of like those like Kingsman, where you get these like super calm, like casual like agents who are just like facing these horrible like intense situations.
I figure it's something you get used to, like any job, like even the coolest job, eventually you're just like, it's another day of working, whatever.
Well, I like you had that bit of like these researchers who are like, oh, you want to join our I think you called it like S&B instead of like D&D. Yeah. It's like, oh, we live like normal suburban lives and like work a job and have to pay mortgages. I was like, oh, that's good. I like that.
Well, and that stuff, like, the thing I love about the SCP Foundation is just like it's such a collaborative effort. Like, everyone's mixing and matching and building off each other's words and worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I always find with my art, I heavily, lean on kind of established tropes or stories and love to kind of subvert them and twist them and play around with them. And so stuff like that, like I've seen so much artwork of like D&D, but it's like a dragon, a skeleton, and like a goblin playing.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, your human's like late for work. What does he do? And I'm like, well, what if the Foundation agents were like that? They just wanted to play like normal life, pretend everything was just about mortgages or whatever.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I also early on you just get the whole like throw a 682 into the sun, because I hear it so much, like all the time. So it's cool to like see how like you imagined how that would play out.
Oh yeah, that was a fun little storyline. I joke to a lot of people that we started off with our first story arc being just like the world ending because they throw everything into the sun. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, after that, it's kind of everything's a little smaller, a little less dramatic, but it still works.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. So you've said this before, but it's pretty obvious. Welcome to Night Vale is like a pretty big influence. What's like the process that kind of goes into this podcast? Because it seems like it's definitely not a super quick, easy thing like this, where I just turn on a camera and start talking to people.
I'm definitely envious of people who have podcasts or series where they kind of just sit down, talk, do a quick edit through for like any kind of weird sound bites or whatever, and post it.
Yeah.
I also like my production is like super slowed down just because it's like me kind of working on it, and I definitely burnt myself out like in 2018 trying to like post like videos every week on my YouTube channel, and then I realized like it just wasn't worth like the mental strain for me to like push those deadlines, and I still need deadlines to like get things done in some sort of timely fashion, but I'm a lot more lax. It's just like, if it happens, it happens, and I want to keep making the series, so I'm going to keep working on it. I've got like a brief kind of story arc, overarching story arc, and like direction I want to go with things, but every episode's kind of just like starts with a seed of an idea of what's going to happen, and I write out stuff, and I've got a whole like master farm document where I write out like, oh, here's a announcement from somebody else's tale, and here's like a funny SCP that would be hilarious to talk to, and like there's little things there, and some of them are like really just like bare bones, just like, oh, it'd be really funny to have the SCP that's the Dream Goat. I think it's like 2576 or something like that. I've done some art of it. I've commissioned some art of it, but it's just this little like Dream Goat that's like rainbow colored. And
I think I've seen that. Yeah, I saw your drawing.
Eldritch god being that got trapped in goat form, and he's kind of bitter about it, but he's apparently like accepted he's a goat.
Yeah.
So there's like something like that where like it'd be fun to have in, but I gotta like figure out how I'm gonna work it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other stuff that's just like, oh, here's in someone's tale they literally mentioned, oh, we're having a game night, everyone needs to bring food. And I'm like, great, that's almost, I can almost take that word for word, build off it a little bit, but it's like a prepackaged kind of fits with what I'm trying to do here with the podcast and the announcement.
Speaking of like those little announcements that you have in the podcast, I'm sure you know about Doom, especially the last 2 games, but they literally remind me so much of those like hilarious corporate announcements that they have while you're playing Doom. I'm like, this is like literally, I love that it's like, oh cool, we have like an SCP version of that.
Yeah.
But
I definitely played the Doom games, the last few games too, especially.
Guys, I still need to play Eternal. My friend just got it, summer sale's on. But
Eternal is fun.
Yeah, no, it's good. So I think this is we ask this. This is like the question we ask everyone on the podcast. But like, what got you into SCP? Like, how'd you find it? What'd you think of it? Yeah, I think you hated it, right?
Yeah. It's been a labor of hate. I only make my content just to spite people.
Yes. Yeah.
Fuels me inside. It was the year after I graduated college. I was living with my aunt. I had a lot of free time because I was job hunting during the day and just kind of kicking around her place at night. And one night, I'm not even like big on Reddit. I don't go on Reddit all that much, but I was on Reddit and someone was posting like creepy photos. And they said, is this SCP-096? Like, I don't know what the fuck that is. But I looked at it, clicked on it. It was some video or GIF of like, it's from some movie where these people like trying to investigate like a haunted house.
Oh, yes, I've seen this.
Thing and like the ghoul thing starts running at them. And it does look kind of like
it does,
this SCP-96 looks like. But I was like, what? This is mind-boggling. I gotta like see what they're talking about now. So that was my first one, is SCP-096. Read that article, and then spent the next 3 days clicking, link after link after link, just like TV tropes, just lost in the links.
That's cool. Yeah, literally, I think every single person we've asked has had a different way they got into the SCP universe, which is kind of cool.
Well, it's definitely cool how big the Foundation has grown and how it's, like if someone says like, how did you get into Star Wars?
Yeah.
It's like, usually it's like, you started with, these specific movies, but maybe your dad got you into it, or maybe you saw these ones first.
Yeah.
But like if someone says, oh, where did you like get into like I don't know, like Gravity Falls, or not Gravity Falls, that's a one-season show. Supernatural. When someone says Supernatural, you usually say like, oh, I started at the beginning, my friend showed me it, or something like that. There's a progressive, the story progresses from a certain point, and you follow it from there.
Yeah.
But with the Foundation, you can jump in at any number of different points. Some people find us through, Markiplier, or somebody playing the game. Somebody, like me, finds it through like a GIF or a recommendation. Some people, find the podcast. I had some people buy off my shop and be like, oh, I just found out about your, like, because some of my pins and stuff are not specifically SCP, or like they're, adjacent.
Yeah.
So it has to be like, oh, I checked out your podcast now. What is this Foundation thing? I'm like, oh, okay,
that's cool.
So yeah, I think that's very cool. Just how anybody can kind of come in and find the Foundation in so many different ways, and we've all kind of got our own little different headcanon.
And also the fact that it's been around for like 10 years now is just insane. Like I feel like most things kind of die out after like 3, 4, 5 years, like internet related things, at least. Like it's well, I'd say, I don't know, maybe that's the cynicist in me speaking, because there's definitely a more than SCP isn't the only long-standing like internet community-based thing out there, but
but I think certain things have like a fever pitch, and I think Foundation's still kind of like on the rise. But also I've been around long enough. I mean, I got, when I found the SCP Foundation, that was like summer of 2013. But like even in my time being in the Foundation fandom, I've seen artists and YouTubers and people come and go And sometimes, people kind of just quietly fade away, and sometimes they, make a big announcement like, I am no longer, going to be reading SCP, or I'm no longer going to be drawing SCP stuff. And they've got their reasons, and I don't blame them for it, but I find it interesting because I've never been like really embedded in any sort of fandom, kind of like that kind of stuff. And I feel like some people, especially like younger people on the internet, get very just like really caught up in their fandom, in like their art or whatever. Yeah. And then like to they kind of have to dramatically leave it. And for me, like, I'm a Pokemon fan, I'm a Halo fan, but also like I haven't bought a Halo game in several years. I haven't played a Pokemon game in a few generations of Pokemon now. Like, I don't know. Like for me, I'm a fan of a lot of series, Doctor Who and Pokemon and Halo and stuff like that. But some of those, like, I haven't actually really interacted with like the fandom or the media or the games, whatever, with it for like a while. But I still consider myself like a Pokemon fan. Like Pokemon Go came out, I was like super excited about that. Was out there playing Pokemon Go for that summer. If a new Halo game came out, I'd be tempted to try to play it if I could get like get it on PC or something like that. But it just, for me, I guess it's like I think a lot of young people get very caught up in their fandoms, and they kind of burn themselves out of it, especially when you get caught up in the drama and the changes and the weird kind of generations that happen sometimes in those kind of fandoms. There's like layers of like the first wave of fans and the new waves and the younger waves and such. And I find it just odd. I guess for me, like, I'm always going to be an SCP fan, and maybe I'll stop making my podcast someday, but I don't ever think I'll ever be like, oh, never mind. That was all just behind.
What's so weird about the SCP Foundation is that, there's so many different authors, there's so many different creators attributing, like, because like one of my first big fandoms I ever got to when I was like middle school was Homestuck. And that was, and that's just like, it's infamous for like how bad the fandom got, but like that was always just one guy making a thing online. And I feel like that's, I guess, that's SCP's edge in that sense, is it's almost always fresh, because like each series has its own theme. It's like kind of got a completely different feel than all the past series. Like the wiki staff does an awesome job, like making sure that the same stories aren't being written over and over and over again.
Definitely. And even if an author like just like disappears, or if they decide, I don't want to write anymore.
DJ Cactus.
I don't touch DJ Cactus.
I feel like it's a meme at this point. He's just like, I'm gone forever, and then comes back.
I mean, again, with the whole fandom stuff, like, there's been other, people who have, joined staff, left for good reasons, bad reasons. I had somebody message me to be like, I am no longer a part of the SCP fandom, except for you. I'm really, I'm not interactive with anything anymore. And I'm like, okay. I see the drama you're talking about. I don't know that reflects the entire staff and the entire fandom. I don't think that's fair, but I don't know. Again, like, I'm kind of on the edge of stuff constantly. I feel like I see drama going across my Twitter feed in the SCP fandom, and I'm like, what? Where'd this come from?
I actually, maybe it's just because I'm not on Twitter. I've avoided so much drama. Like, I really barely see any. Nothing like fandom-wise, I guess. But I'm basically just on YouTube and like Instagram, and I've seen like very, very little. I saw a little, I guess, drama on Instagram, but it was never like, it was just like little squabblings between SCP Instagram pages, and like that's it.
Like little fan and meme pages just like squabbling about stuff. No. It's I don't know. It's definitely odd. Like, I've seen just a lot of like meme, Instagrams pop up, and I can tell that the SCP fandom is a lot of younger kids. The polling, the fandom survey thing they do every year, like, they've got the data, like, there's a lot of younger kids there, but there's also like a lot of us older, and we're all getting, I think the whole fandom's getting a little bit older and maturing, and especially with the latest move of like changing the sign-up age to 18 or whatever, but that's SCP politics, so I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I mean, that's not like politics. That's still related to the page, but I'm sure everyone's heard about this now. Like, Sumerians talked about it so much. Like,
Anyways, yeah, I got one of Samarian's mugs. Is you're wrong about this mug.
Yeah.
Trying to expand my SCP merch. Try to support some, of us fellow indie small artists.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I think Bung did a really good job with the artwork for that. I like that.
Yeah.
That rendition.
Well, I was gonna say I like seeing people putting their artwork out there and working together on stuff like that. And again, like it's like I think it's important to it's important for artists to get paid.
Yeah.
B, like I think it's really cool that there's SCP merchandise out there and like stuff you can use to support us. Rep your favorite, SCPs or authors or writers or readers or whatever. Because a few years ago, there was nothing,
Yeah.
And as much as there's complications and like kind of like weird ins and outs of that kind of stuff, I don't know. It's very cool to see what people are putting out there and what's available.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, we might be releasing merch this year.
Do it.
Yeah, I got a bunch of ideas, and I know one of my artist friends. He's like, "Yeah, I can totally draw up those posters, yada yada." So we're figuring it out, but it'll be cool. It's a little intimidating, I will say, because it's like my whole thing is like, who do I get my sources from? There's like a lot of like research and that I'm still digging through, but.
Yeah, well, and especially the design side of things, like for me, I really want to I like making designs that like look good outside of just like, do you like this?
Yes.
What this is for or not,
Exactly.
Because I've seen like, especially for like YouTubers and streamers and stuff like that, I've seen them put out, not specifically SCP ones, but just like streamers in general is a huge umbrella term. I've seen people be like, oh, support me, buy my t-shirt, and I'll look and it'll be something on Teespring and it's just the but ugliest, like his logo slapped this crazy color with this terrible font, and I'm like, I guess if you like this guy, you get this, but like, no one's gonna look at the shirt and be like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And like for me, I've got some T-shirts and prints and stuff I have where like I have no clue what it's about, but I love the design so much, I will buy it, I'll rep it, I'll wear it around.
Like one person I don't watch him, but I love his merch is Elvis the Alien. Like he gets real, and it has nothing to do with his content, but he just makes these really cool like alien and like alternate like comic book-esque designs on his all of his merch. I'm just like, cool, I like that a lot because you've talked about it already, but like I love the idea of like, I don't know, like one of my friends who knows nothing about SCP coming into my room and like, oh, that's a cool poster, and it's like, like they don't need to know the background of it to just appreciate it.
Well, that's I actually, one of my favorite pieces I've done is like I made an SCP front called it's like SCP Foundation, scaffolding, construction, plumbing. We work in the dark so you can live in the light. And the logo is the SCP logo, but instead of the arrows going in, it's like a wrench, a hammer, and like a
I've seen that. Yeah.
Screwdriver. And to me, I love that because it's subtle, and like an SCP fan would spot that a mile away. Yeah. But someone who doesn't know SCP would be like, oh, I guess it's a construction mug he got, probably something just like free. And again, like I think that stuff's fun for like bumper stickers or mugs or a T-shirt that's kind of like subtle references, but not like screaming in your face.
I think Valve did a pretty good job with that. Like I literally have a Half-Life poster there. That's literally just like, I have video. I can show y'all. Oh God! Wait, front camera. I'm making everyone motion sick. Oh God! Oh wait, wrong side of my. Oh, front camera. Oh my God, my brain's like having a hard time right now. But anyway, there's your my Half-Life poster.
There we go.
With dog. But I've had people walk into the room. They're like, "Oh, it's a cool poster," and like they've never heard of Half-Life or Valve or anything like that before.
Yeah, I've got on my wall. Let's see, switch the camera. Yeah, I've got a Journey poster.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I love that just because that's such it's such a like really lovely piece, but it also is like video game art. Like, I definitely have had exes where like if I told her I was going to put up like video game art, she'd be like,
yeah,
exactly.
That's
beautiful. We'll frame that. And like that's a nice mix. I like.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like even with my videos, I like to have it. I mean, I can't do it for every video, but at least I like to have some videos where like my mom could watch it and she gets it. Like she doesn't have to know SCP, she doesn't have to know every little thing. But it also is fun to have like the recurring inside jokes and all that stuff kind of mixed in.
Yeah, well, I know. I think that was the thing that like Lord Bung really did well when he came with the confinement series.
Yeah.
Is you go in like the comments of that. There's all sorts of people saying, "I don't know what this is about, but I love it." And like I know with FAM Radio, and part of it's because it's an audio drama, so there's no visual element to it all.
Yeah.
But we ran into a pitfall in the beginning of the series where we referenced a lot of SCP numbers, and some of them are very, very big ones, like SCP 682, where most of the fandom knows that number, but anybody else has no fucking clue what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I've had to kind of go back and like not go back, but like moving forward, make the effort to be okay. We're going to talk about an SCP. I'm going to drop the number, but I also need to describe physically what it is, and somehow make that work with this statement and not be this huge, word vomit.
Yeah.
Because some SCPs you can condense to like a very quick, sentence or two, and others are kind of like, well, this is a lot.
Yeah, it's like, oh, let me just explain a whole dimension real quick. Some shit like that.
I was gonna say there's even some SCPs that like I've had like I don't understand still. Like there's one that's like it's like I'm not gonna try to explain it. I don't know how it works.
Toadking for 10 minutes tries to explain something.
Explain something that he doesn't understand.
That he doesn't understand.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I will try so damn hard.
Oh man. But I mean, so like, what are your big inspirations other than SCP that you kind of pull in creatively?
Yeah. So again, the one that inspired me right off and I use inspired in the nicest way possible.
Yeah.
You could probably make an argument that I just stole, or ripped off.
Spin off.
Welcome to Night Vale.
Yeah.
But also, to be fair, like, they weren't the first radio drama, and there's plenty of ones out there. But listening to that, I was like, I found that podcast, and I found SCP, and it just was like chocolate and peanut butter. It just made sense to put these together and kind of make my own thing and run with it. And so Welcome to Night Vale is a series that I've really loved. It definitely gets a little quirky, a little too quirky for its own good sometimes, just like getting real weird. But I still love it, and I also really love like what the guys behind it have done. Because they did a podcast, but then they like started taking it on the road, and they did live shows. Like they started trying to do different kind of formats, and they got episodes where it's just like characters doing monologues. And they've got characters that evolved as like a one-off kind of joke once, that now are like reoccurring characters that have become very important. The characters have loved and lost and changed and grown. And I think a few of them even died. Well, the characters, anyways, the actors.
Yeah, no, I'd hope not.
But now they're like doing books and stuff like that. And so for me, like as a creative, as an artist, they're really inspiring. Just like everything they're doing with that. Because sometimes, like when I talk about what I'm trying to do or what I want to do with my podcast or online stuff, like some people just don't get it. They don't see the vision. They don't see like I was talking to a date a few months back, and she was like, so is there like money in podcasts? Not really, but the hope is to like use this to kind of fluff up my portfolio, get some experience with producing online content, and that's a bit more lucrative a field that I can get into over like me just chipping away at a podcast by myself. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I've always liked stories that have like unreliable narrators or like kind of weird sci-fi stories and fantasy that kind of explores like what ifs and strangeness. But I'm always drawn towards like the mundane aspects of craziness, of strangeness. So like, for example, another story, like a story I've kicked around for like a while now is like exploring the superhero world. So kind of like the Avengers, where the superheroes are, running all over the place, Marvel, DC, just mash them all up. And instead of just following the grand adventures of, Spider-Man and Iron Star.
Iron Star.
Tony Stark as Iron Man. It would be, I always think it's fun to kind of explore, like, well, what happens on a superhero's day off?
Yeah.
Or like, what happens when a superhero has to go to the superhero tailor to get his suit repaired? And when you have like a bulletproof suit or whatever, how do you get that repaired by a guy, when you have no budget because you live with your aunt.
Your aunt. Kick-Ass kind of went into that a little bit. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, again, there's so much fun, I think, to be had at being like, okay, if this was real, what would be the nitty gritty, almost and not the nitty, I hate nitty gritty when stories like, oh, this story's real dark.
Yeah.
And all they mean is like every other character's on a drug or cheating or just like a terrible, horrible asshole. And like for me, it's like people are flawed, but I don't think most people are terrible.
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of fun to be had of exploring the more mundane aspects of like the weirdness of.
Yeah, there's I'm not sure if it's a comic, but it's about like the superhero cleanup crew, and it's just about them like cleaning up after every destruction or every like big fight.
Yeah, do that.
I mean,
the video game that came out where like you play as like the janitor in like a secret lab after all the scientists get killed.
I like that. That's cool.
You're just like mopping up blood and like picking up body parts and bringing them over or something. Like it's super weird.
That kind of reminds me. It's not out yet, but I can't remember his name, but he's making that name Josie. Literally about the Hef Cat, and I feel like that's probably gonna have a very similar kind of tone, which will be cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that's definitely what I'm all about with like FAM Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I kind of want to bring to my next SCP podcast, which I've been trying to kick around for a while. The only problem is just like I can barely get one podcast going. Getting a second one's probably stupid, but also there's a reason I don't plan these things out. Just go for it. But also, like, I want to change things up. I want to start working with more people and stop trying to do everything by myself. So I've got I had a plan for this year, making this podcast, new podcast happen, and then 2020 happened.
Yeah.
The way it did.
Tell me about it.
So, those plans are kind of on hold right now. So.
I mean, we were supposed to do a Containment Breach film, and that's literally set back. It's on hiatus till this calms down. Who knows when?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's been the weird thing is like trying to figure out, when do we get back to normal? If we get back to normal, what do things look like after this? I need to order new pin designs for winter. I need to get that going now, but I also wasn't sure, if it would be safe to order from, my manufacturers or how long that would take.
Are they even still running, or were they also shut down for a while?
So yeah, for a while they shut down.
Yeah.
I actually had a bunch of orders on my shop because I've got some print-on-demand items, like the T-shirts are all fulfilled by a service, and that service will print the stuff and ship it for me. The pins I have all the stock myself, and I ship it out. But the shirts, for a good few weeks, if not a month or so, the productions were just dead, just waiting. And then they slowly opened things up, and they figured out a way to fulfill the orders while still being safe and clean, but it delayed the process by a lot. So all the new orders that come in for shirts are you order it January, not January, you order it June 1st, you're going to get it shipped out July 1st, basically, the whole month late.
Yikes.
And I had to message a lot of people and ask, hey, are you cool with this? And a few people were like, nah, I wanted this by a certain date. But other people, most people were understanding, or, compromise, I'll trade for this other item.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
But the pins should probably be back on track. But it's, international shipping and stuff's been foobarred. They've got things bouncing all over the place.
I'm still waiting on an Akira book I ordered 3 months ago.
Well, I my roommate ordered a bunch of stuff at the beginning of this, and over the next 3 months, we got his packages at random. It felt like, So some cleaning supplies or something he ordered at the start of this that seemed very important. We wouldn't get for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and sometimes it was after the fact. And he's like, I don't need this anymore, but okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Thankfully, I mean, we literally live miles away from each other. But where I live, things are slowly opening up. Definitely not going back to normal, but it seems like things are kind of getting, like, you know, like restaurants are open now again, and it's like slowly daily life's kind of crawling back. But
yeah, it's things are opening up here, and it's been strange seeing people out, you know, going to restaurants and bars and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm optimistic, but I'm still really kind of concerned that we're a little too quick to get back into things. I also am like really nervous about like that the people who might be the first ones to go back to the bars and restaurants stuff are maybe the people who aren't being as safe as the rest of us are. But then the fact that we'll see them, you know, out having fun and maybe you get invited by a friend or somebody, and now you're tempted, you're on the fence, you know, and that's gonna like slip and drag other people into it. You know, the FOMO is real.
Yeah, big time. Especially, you know, July 4th coming up. You got like, that's like the big summer holiday. There's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and especially like in New York City, I don't know, the whole thing's been weird just because like we all were dealing with bullshit before all this. We all had, you know, issues with work and relationships and family and life and such. And then, you know, world pandemic happened and everything got stressed and terrible. And then we kind of collectively said, hey, everyone gets a pass. Like, you don't got to be productive. You don't got to learn a new skill. Just like live your life. You know, here's some unemployment money. And I feel like I was just finally like getting comfortable and like good with my day to day. And now things are opening up and it's like, oh shit, you know, like, is unemployment going to end? Should be going out there. Now it's like, even though I don't think it's safe to be going out, like I still want to be going out there, but I don't want to go out there, but I don't want to miss out on things.
I feel you on that. I mean, it must be really rough for you because, you know, you're like in a small apartment in New York City. You can't like just hang out in your backyard or something.
Yeah. For better or worse, I can look over my downstairs neighbor's backyard. He's got a little green back there. I haven't stepped foot in it, you know, but I stood out on my fire escape and looked down at him and had a nice talk one time.
Wow, see, everyone's coming closer together. It's the silver lining. This is the Disney movie ending. Yeah.
And now I've met all my neighbors, at least in my building. Upstairs and downstairs, I finally met them.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
the little things.
We're going to try to hang out after all this.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I like that. How about like a potluck or something?
Yeah, something. You know, he's got a grill downstairs. Again, he's got a nice little backyard. And he's the kind of person that's like, he's been working real hard at this backyard. So he's got nice plants, a little path that walks through it, you know.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Some trees he planted.
I was gonna say, I've been to Queens and like you get these like barren cement, like awful backgrounds. I mean, backyards. Like it's nice that he's put work into it.
In contrast, our neighbor just like over the fence from him, it was just stone and concrete. And then since they went away, they went upstate or something like that to hide out.
Yeah.
I've watched their yard just be overrun with
wow.
So it's just like this massive, unruly jungle has sprung up in their yard, and then his yard's like nice.
You're seeing the desecration of New York City falling back to nature.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Last of Us now, because like that's like the whole thing is like you get to see these giant cities basically turn into like these giant wildlife preserves, basically, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But
I mean, nature is already frustrated. Like the second mankind like dips, like nature's taking back over.
Yeah, I mean, I've been like hearing these weird stories of like dolphins coming up to like the shores of like docks with gifts because they like miss human contact. This is in Venice actually, because they were so used to tourists feeding them constantly all the time.
Yeah.
So there's like these weird kind of relationships you don't think about that humans have with animals, and then we just disappear one day, and they're just like, what happened?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, I'm almost sure the rat wars. I'm sure yeah, come on. You're in the center of it. Yeah.
To the New York subway coming up because there's no garbage down there to eat.
Yeah.
The rat's gotta still feed his family.
Do you have any rat stories?
No.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Really. I guess I can contribute a rat story. My neighbor has cleaned up his yard, but he was having rats running around.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently real big ones. So he set some traps, and he's killed them out. It sounds like, but it's kind of tough because the backyard's kind of enclosed. There's buildings on all sides, but there's 3 separate yards.
Yeah.
So we're kind of closed off from the rest of the city or area, more or less. But he's only in control of his one section, and the person on either side of him, he can't really control what they're doing.
Yeah.
So rats kept coming over from the yard that wasn't really kept. I'm on the second floor and I don't see these rats.
Okay, that's nice at least.
He'd be a little annoyed at me because I bought a bird feeder and I put it out my window, and that was nice for a week, and then the birds are stupid. They were just knocking bird seed everywhere, and he was like, could you not put that out? The seeds are getting everywhere and the rats are coming in.
Man, yeah, that's rough. Because normally you think, oh, the squirrels. No, rats. Yeah.
Well, squirrels are cute, but they're basically just rats with fluffy tails.
I mean, this is a little old story. My grandpa basically used to be a plumber, and he used to go into these old apartment buildings and replace boilers and everything. And one time he went in, and my dad was helping him out, and they were tearing down a wall, and literally a flood, this is not exaggerated, hundreds of rats came pouring out and rushed, and they literally just ran out of there.
Gross.
So.
I mean, yeah, anytime there's a swarm of something like that, nightmarish.
No, I mean, have you read Rats on the Walls? It's an old Lovecraft story.
No, I don't think so.
If you're in a really ratty mood, you should read that one. That one's really good. It's one of my favorites.
I'll keep that one in mind.
Yeah.
I get Rats on the Walls makes you think of the one SCP that's it's some sort of fleshy thing that grabs other things, but there's feral cats that it's infected or something like that, and it's this mass of feral cats that are infected with this thing. I don't know if it's a hive mind or if they're physically connected to each other or something like that.
It sounds familiar.
It's not the flesh that hits.
Yeah.
It's specifically about these cats. This old woman died in the house, and the cats are infected and or growing into some massive form, and some MTF poor souls try to get them out of there, and they get attacked by them.
You get very The Thing vibes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, very very The Thing. Some fleshy. Maybe think of the rat. You ever heard of what a rat king is?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Rat king being. I guess it's just something that happened naturally,
mm-hmm.
but just rats becoming entangled with each other via their tail.
Yeah.
Whether it's mud or shit or maybe they get tied or caught on something, but they end up entangled, so they're all attached at the tail, and so it's a swarm of rats kind of running and fighting together,
mm-hmm.
and just being a terrible, gross thing. And apparently that's historically, that happened. Or these people have recorded it, but
yeah, I think specifically in German folklore, there's a bunch of stories about it being a bad omen. Kind of some interesting. That's where I found about it.
Yeah,
because I love when there's kind of this weird mythological tone to something a natural phenomena.
Yeah, well, especially if it's something that again can actually kind of happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be very unsettling to see that you know, in real life. I think of similarly with an albino raven or something like that, some sort of animal with a deformity. There was some news article about some village in India where there was some sheep born that looked very human. And unfortunately, the people were more superstitious than scientific about it, so they were well, clearly someone's been fucking this sheep. This hybrid.
Yeah.
Which, looking at it, that logically that looks like it could make sense, but it's obviously not.
I recently showed my sister the goat with a human face, and it was just terrifying her with it. But But yeah, I know with that specific case, they thought it was like a descendant of like a Hindu god, so that's why they revered it so much, which is kind of interesting.
Again, there's the difference of I loved, like, before SCP, I loved cryptid stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Bigfoot, Mothman, Jersey Devil, a lot of the cooler, more niche ones. I don't remember their names anymore, but I used to watch that stuff on Sci-Fi Channel, The Hunt for Nessie, these TV shows. I still remember, like, growing up, my parents would leave us, like, gifts from Santa Claus. And they told me, Santa Claus gave us these gifts, da-da-da-da-da. I don't remember when it happened, but eventually I did find out that Santa Claus wasn't real. And I remember that whenever it did happen, it was just such a, like, oh, yeah, okay. Makes sense. Just something my parents lied to me about. These presents they bought them for us. Okay, cool. But the day I realized that Bigfoot probably wasn't real because the show talking about did we find Bigfoot was on it, on a Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on a Sci-Fi Channel, and every episode was like, it turns out the sound was a dog from the neighbors next, in the valley over, but maybe Bigfoot's still out there. And I was like, oh shit, Bigfoot's not real. And that crushed my young heart.
And if it makes it feel better, they think he could have existed in the sense of like 10,000 years ago, there was this like mega ape that was like 20 feet tall and like massive. And some people think that's where maybe that could have come from, which is kind of interesting, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard theories about, Bigfoot and Nessie, that they were maybe, something that happened that did live like way long ago, or the one that started these more modern sightings was some sort of mutation or released something that got out or trapped. But I've also heard like weirder theories about Bigfoot where it's like Bigfoot's not physical, it's an energy manifestation, and that's why it disappears so fast. And that's where I'm like, okay, that's enough internet for today. We're gonna go back and check.
That's a fun one. I've never heard that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and there's all sorts of weird stuff like that. I used to read all sorts of weird books, Mysteries of Mind, Space and Time, or something like that. It was just this like book of just strange, unexplainable stuff. Human combustion and these, alien sight. People who like people who like witnesses were like, okay, that man died, but then like 3 years later, the man would show up and have all the memories of like
that person,
that person, but they're like, no, but we have your body here, like it's rotten and we can't confirm it anymore, but like, this is all like, older stuff, so like, a lot less data and scientific fact to go off of. But it was definitely like, I filled my mind with the weird possibilities of what's out there.
Well, were you a Ripley's Believe It or Not fan? Because that's what got me into like all the cryptid stuff. Yeah,
a lot of Ripley's Believe It or Not. The Fact or Fiction show.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it's a throwback. That was was that on a History Channel? What was that on?
Oh, no, I don't think it was History.
Man, I barely remember it.
Around the same time as Ripley's, whatever channel that was.
It's a lot older. Maybe I'm thinking of a different show.
I mean, I don't know if it's a lot older, but they've had a few like iterations of it.
Oh, okay.
It's the one with the guy from Star Trek, number 2, Picard's number 2 on the Enterprise.
Oh, I actually don't know.
There's like a meme where someone's like, if you take this guy's question, because every like episode he like asks you a question like, would you buy a car for $1? Like, if you ordered a pizza, would you expect it to be there in 3 days? And it's like these weird questions that are just like, how he kind of like segues into the next weird story he tells you about. But then someone was like, oh, if you take his audio and you slow it down to like 1.5 speed, it sounds like he's just a drunk guy who's asking you drunken questions.
That reminds me of have you seen Chubby Emu? Because he kind of does that with like, they're like medical stories of like, this man ate 10 Cheetos and he died. And it's like, and then he'll just have these really weird segues and like questions leading to it.
I mean, well, that's the beauty of those kind of things is there's natural like segues and natural like, whoa, wait a second, like how did that happen? Which I'm on the not evil side of it, or the dark side, but the bad side of it, the negative side is, that's where we get all the clickbait. That's like, you'll never believe what washed up on the Venice shores here.
Yeah.
It's this weird picture, and you're like, oh shit, a new sea creature, and it's like, oh no, it's just a dolphin that's been rotting for a few days or something.
Oh yeah, that actually reminded me. Were you in New York when the Montauk Monster happened?
No. Was that the thing with the flashing lights?
No. So this is I'll throw up a picture for people who've never heard of this.
Oh,
but and if you want to look it up, but it's this creature that washed up on the shores of Montauk Beach. People claimed it came from Plum Island, which is literally a secret island off of Long Island. That's state owned.
Hold on.
Oh,
all right.
No worries. But it's literally a government owned like animal testing facility. That's what they say it is. And no one's allowed, only scientists and researchers are allowed on this island. And people claim that this monster came from the testing facilities of Plum Island and washed up on the shores of Montauk. And it's basically this like half-rotted animal. And I think maybe that's partly why I like really loved, because that actually reminds me of I can't remember the name of Harbolt numbers, but the SCP where they have to like sacrifice a little girl to like keep this like horrible godlike creature at bay, who people say it's probably the Scarlet King. But I feel like that reminded me of the Montauk Monster, but more so like the Plum Island, because people have always said like it's this mysterious facility that no one's allowed to, that's off the coast of Long Island. And it's like, if SCP was real, it would be on Plum Island. Like but the cool thing is they actually might be turning that into a preserve in a couple of years, which is kind of cool, because it'd be curious if they kept like the facilities up and everything. Yeah.
I was gonna say I did get to walk around some abandoned insane asylums on Long Island here, and that was fun.
Was it Kings Park? I think that's the name.
Yeah. Kings Park. Yeah. Most of them are fenced off. You're really not supposed to kind of go into them, but a few of them you can.
Yeah.
Still, and some of them are still like more open and cleaned up.
Don't do it, kids. We're not responsible.
Don't break an entered thing. The gal I was dating at the time, she claimed to be very sensitive to spirits and claimed to have ghosts, deceased people who were she could see or that would watch over her. We went there, and there's a few times where she was like, I don't like the energy, we gotta get out of here. And then like we left, and she's like, okay, I don't want to freak you out, but like something's followed us home. But like it seems like it's just kind of curious and it's gonna go away. And that definitely freaked me out, but I still don't know that I believe that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've never had anything totally unexplainable happen to me, and I've always kind of wanted something to happen. But also,
yeah.
I mean, I'm also from like a more conservative. Like my dad's a pastor, so like
okay.
I'm also aware that like you don't always want to open doors to things.
Yeah.
Because I've heard enough stories about people taking the girls on TikTok taking the witch fad thing, and like trying to talk to some demon, and then like she ends up dead 5 days later, and it's like people are like, you shouldn't be talking to that spirit because he doesn't like white people, or even.
Wait, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That reminds me. Have you heard of Lake? So there's a lake, Ronkonkoma, on Long Island. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it has. That actually reminds me. Basically, the whole thing is basically about this ghost that inhabits this lake, and it was actually a Native American princess who I think was drowned by like white settlers or like a white lover. I don't remember the specifics, but basically the whole rumor is that if you're a young white man or a young man in general and you swim in those waters, she'll try to take you under the waters and drown you. Yeah. So
I mean, that's the thing. I definitely believe there's weird stuff out there, and I definitely want to believe in Bigfoot and Nessie and spirits and stuff like that. I don't know what I believe, but I know I believe that there's stuff out there that we don't really know.
Yeah. I like the theory that they're like parts of they're stuck in a time loop. Like it's basically, I've heard basically it's almost like you're blurring but with a parallel dimension where you're kind of just seeing like the same time loop kind of go over and over and over again. It's more of like a parallel and less of them directly interacting with this world.
The idea that like people are, energy, that we're giving off energy, that a traumatic or terrible, event can leave like a footprint or an after image kind of on an area.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely interesting.
I'm personally terrified of like spirits and ghosts and all that stuff. Even though I'm like, I consider myself pretty agnostic, or I'm kind of just like no one knows in the end. But that's still like my biggest phobia, for whatever reason. I mean, like for like as a kid, I used to read like some of the Ripley's ghost and demon stories, and like I literally could not sleep at night. Like it literally, it was bad. I had to sleep with the lights on.
Well, yeah, I still do, but when I was a kid, I had a very active imagination, and I couldn't watch anything or read anything too scary before bed, or I'd be up all night. And I remember my mom imparted on me some advice that I've kind of held on to. It's just like, be careful what you let into your mind, because once you have like an image in your head, you really can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And especially as like, more horror movies got more and more grotesque, and there was like movies like Hostel and Human Centipede and shit like that came out. Like friends of mine were like, "Oh my gosh, we got to see that! It's so terrible." And I was like, "Nope, I don't want to see that."
You made the right decision.
Yeah. I feel a lot better about that. So you do got to be careful what you expose yourself to. I think obviously other people got different tolerances, but for me, I prefer more of the fun side of fantasy and weirdness.
Yeah. No, yeah. I've definitely had some friends who go way too deep in that rabbit hole, like watching like stuff on live stream, and literally like there's like a numbness that ends up coming with that, almost like a side of trauma. I really think, when you see horrible things, it's definitely going to affect you. Yeah, it is very weird when it gets to that other side of things. Like you can get numb to that kind of stuff, or feel, even if what you're looking at on the video or the screen is like a real suicide or a real murder or a real dead body or something like that, it's still disconnected because you've got that screen kind of between you. Yeah. It's like it's still, I think for a lot of people, it still is kind of translates as like fiction. It's like if you watch, Saving Private Ryan, wherever there's a lot of dead bodies or people dying in there, but it's fake. It's fake, movie. But then if you're like actually watching like real footage from a war zone, you're kind of still filtering it through that like screen experience, and I think it still doesn't really translate over. And I think a lot of people either unfortunately like they segue into thinking that's normal and fine, and like it kind of is a gateway into snuff and worse things, or they don't segue, but they say, oh well, it's probably not that bad, but they really never like experience like seeing a real dead body in person and how horrifying that could be or something. Yeah. So I mean, I've always been fascinated with death growing up, partially because of ghosts and partially because of all that stuff. But then I ended up visiting Italy when I got out of high school, because I'm Italian American, so it was like, and I basically did like an exchange program there, to like visit my roots, I guess. But I ended up going to this monastery from like the Renaissance. I think it was from like 1600s, and what they had is they had all the monks' bodies embalmed and mummified, and it was like my first real experience with like seeing like dead humans and like bones, and it's just like, it was interesting. It wasn't like scary or spooky, because it was nice to know that it was on their own volition, and it was like their way of like honoring God and like preserving their bodies for it. But it was very surreal. Because I feel like with our culture especially, we're so disconnected from death. Whereas like, most of our history, death was at every part of your life. We're lucky in that way.
Yeah, we definitely are very fortunate society where death is not as common. There's more people who survive, very common things that used to just wipe out, childbirth or flus or colds or heck, even the winter, you know, we've got medicine and food supplies and warmth on demand, basically.
Like, the fact that it was expected that one of your kids was, like, guaranteed to die, like, that's insane.
That some cultures, like, you don't name your kid until they're a certain age, because it'd not be worth it to get that attached to him. But yeah, it's also, you know, that, you know, kind of branching off that in a bit, that's something I find our society is very poorly, we don't celebrate the end of things a lot. We have a lot of products and a lot of media that focuses on, like, youth and being young forever and hiding your wrinkles, and dyeing your hair, and, you know, a lot of our stories are about, you know, young teen rebels, high school sweethearts who get married, and, you know, these kind of everlasting characters that don't change, don't grow, don't die, etc. And, like, I think our society needs to be better. Like, American society, I think, needs to be better, like, accepting, like, hey, things end, and that's okay. Things change, and that's okay. You'll grow old, you'll grow weaker, you'll grow apart, whatever, and, like, that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
like, do you know about Bhutan? It's considered, like, the happiest country in the world.
No.
But it's mainly I like a lot of Buddhist philosophy that I like to apply to my own life. But they're basically a Buddhist country, and basically one of the key factors in their culture is, like, being aware of impermanence and that they will all grow old, get sick, and die. And a lot of people, and I agree with this, I think there's a real power if you accept or are aware of that, like, knowledge. It's a lot easier, I think, to live a happier life, because it's like there's, like, it almost imbues a sense of gratitude, because you know nothing is forever, you know. And it can be it can just be like, I feel like people immediately respond like, oh, that's so depressing, that's so horrible. I'm like, but I don't know, I think it's what makes, like, things valuable, makes things, like, special. You know?
Well, it makes things special and valuable, but also it's the truth. It's the one truth about everything in existence.
Yeah.
From, you know, the trees I'm looking out the window at, to ourselves, to our pets, our families, our loved ones, the building I'm in, you know, the cities we're in, like, they all will end at some point. They're going to change and grow. And to deny that is to deny literally existence.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and it's kind of this shame. Like, you look at human history, like, you know, pyramids and stuff like that. Like, you know, so many important people have tried to live beyond their life and build monuments to themselves. You know, we know of King Tut, but we don't know King Tut, you know? And it is a lot more powerful, I think, just to kind of accept, things are going to change, and we're not going to make it out of this alive.
I mean, I really love that poem by Shelley, Ozymandias. You know, actually, let me put it up real quick. I'm going to read it because it's really short, and it's one of my favorite, and it's literally about this explorer who comes across these Egyptian ruins, and he reads the pharaoh's statement. This is Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. It was written like the 1800s. It's actually Mary Shelley's husband. Fun fact. The author of Frankenstein. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on a pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Yeah. So, Breaking Bad, actually, is how I found out about that poem, because they have a whole episode named Ozymandias. But yeah, I mean, that's just one of my favorite poems, because it has to do with that whole kind of theme and that thought process. Because it just shows you, I mean, like, that's why I love history, period. It's just that you think your world has always been constant, always existed, and it's far from the truth.
Yeah. Well, yeah, again, like, I wish we were all a little bit better about that kind of stuff. You know, somebody mentioned at the beginning of this quarantine that's kind of like why a lot of us were struggling and like kind of mourning, kind of, you know, feeling really upset. It was because we had kind of come to expect that tomorrow was going to happen a certain way, you know, and then suddenly all this happened and things are not going the way any of us planned.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's a little unfair to think that, you know, it's that weird thing where, like, you want to live for today, but you also have to plan for tomorrow, too. So you kind of got to find a balance.
Yeah.
Like our society's not exactly built for that. Yeah.
At least, like, for me, whenever a conflict happens on a personal level or on a more, like, external world level, I always try to find, like, what's the positive we can take away from this? Like, if there is a positive we can take away from this. Like at least for this, I'm hoping that it'll help kind of reveal the things that we've been ignoring, the problems we've been ignoring, either on a personal level and a more external level, and be like, hey, maybe we start handling these things, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, like I know I personally don't believe in like fate exactly, or that all things happen for like a reason exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But also I do believe that you can find good in the bad. And, you know, I'm also speaking from like a privileged spot where like I haven't had, you know, like any major trauma or loss of loved ones or life or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But also like, again, life is struggle. Life is trouble. Life is a lot of ups and downs, and we will lose loved ones and lose things. And like, while it hurts and it sucks and you want to avoid it as best you can, if you let yourself kind of focus or wallow on the negative, on the loss, you're going to miss out on, you know, the life that continues and what comes out of that. And sometimes, you know, bad stuff happens that we can then take our experience and bring it to the next time something bad happens, and we're more prepared.
Yeah.
Or we're able to help somebody out who isn't prepared. You know, I totally understand that, like, it's a lot easier saying this just because, you know, I got bullied and that was my big trauma problem growing up in high school, and now I feel, you know, I'm a better person for it. But on the other hand, like, you know, there's stuff like that I think is important to try to take with you moving forward of things, you know, like, again, like the whole quarantine life has really messed up a lot of people's lives. Definitely didn't wish it to happen, but also it's happened and there's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
So all we can kind of do is kind of pick up the pieces and move forward from this and kind of figure out what we can learn. And if it helps us all look to the future a little differently than we did before and change some things that maybe we needed to change, you know, again, personal level, in national level and a global level, you know, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And like, just as a little, I guess, like a self-experience, like knowing about impermanence and like accepting that has really helped me with like being less of like a bitter person, you know, like not holding on to grudges. It's just like, in the end, these things, these little feuds, they just don't matter. Like, obviously there's context for that, but like most of the time, like I get into a fight with my sister and I'm pissed, you know, she broke my Lego set. I'm thinking like 8-year-old James. I spent hours putting that together. You know, this is a very light example, but it does help to kind of just take a step back and just like put things into a bigger picture. For me, like that's just one of my little tools that I try to use. I will say this has probably been our most philosophical episode to date.
That's how my conversations tend to go. It's
I love it. It's great. I haven't like had a conversation about like impermanence in a long time, so it's a nice refresher.
Well, yeah. I mean, just one more little antidote to that, and then maybe we can talk about something a little bit lighter. You know, I can talk about Breakout Godzilla or whatever. But I know, like for me, like I've had a lot of heartbreak over the last few years. A lot of relationships that left me feeling very just hurt and just very, you know, what's wrong with me, or why didn't things go the way I thought they would or wanted them to. And like, especially going into quarantine, I was I was like you're stuck when I was bitter about being single, and like I would look out the window and see these couples walking with their masks on and like embrace and hug and hold hands, and I'm sitting in my apartment haven't touched a human being in 2 months or whatever, haven't talked to anybody except for over the phone or talked to my roommate. He was a good guy, but we kept our own stuff separate. But anyway, so like I was really upset about that stuff, but I've been I just got into therapy before all this happened, and now I'm doing therapy over the phone, and that's been helpful. And I was talking to my therapist, and I kind of came to the conclusion, it's just like, as much as I really I really would love to have somebody in my life to talk to and lean on and share stuff with. I'm also like focusing on the ideal version of what that would look like right now. And for most couples I know, this is a really bad time.
Yeah.
Like even whether they live together or not, like there's fights, breaking up. I have at least a few friends who are going through like really messy divorces, like either just before all this or like more or less during this, like things kind of finalized, and like that would be a nightmare to dealing with on top of all this. So I kind of like have to remind myself like, oh yeah, like I've been feeling lonely, but also like I could be dealing with something way more disruptive to my peace right now. And also like I look back on my past life, and I look back at like younger me, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have had somebody when I was younger and just out of college or whatever. But then also I look back at like young Eric, and I'm like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you want. You're not emotionally available. You're not good at communication. So I kind of had to shift my thinking and look at it instead of being bitter that like, oh, I'm 32 and I don't have a wife or a girlfriend or whatever. I also had to like look and be like, you know what though, like younger me very well could have got into some could have been that stupid kid that was dating someone in high school so long, he was just like, well, I guess we get married now. And now I'm in some sort of bitter, loveless, abusive relationship where she's abusive, or even I could have been abusive because like coming from like small town Pennsylvania and not if I never got out of the city, or if I just never had these years to grow on my own, like things could have been really shitty. And I'm trying to be thankful that I'm where I am now, because it's trying to make the most of it all.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I've always had this mentality of like, I'd much rather be single and get married at 40 and have a great marriage than rush into a relationship out of like loneliness and basically try to force something that really was never going to work. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people, we do that. We try to make something work that really isn't working, and either we're too stuck on like what is and afraid of losing that for the future, or we're just we have a wrong idea of what we're looking for. Yeah, I know for me it was definitely I had the wrong idea of what I was looking for in the past. I one time got a press pass from Machinima back when they were a thing, and got to go to Comic-Con and like interview people who were like famous. And one of the ones I was most proud of and I failed the most hard on was Freddie Wong. Oh yeah? He does like, the rocket jump videos. Yeah, I love Freddie. He's back in the day, he's doing lots of cool stuff now. But we set up, recorded him, and then found out later that we never turned the mic on. So we had this video with no audio, and it wasn't like, oh, we've got crappy audio. No, we had no audio. Oh, that's really rough. Nothing we could do about it. Man. So that's actually interesting. So like, what do you do in the real world? What's your job? Yeah, I mean, day job is just a day job. I was dog walking for several years here in New York City. Okay. And then I made a switch to a random company where I teach people how to throw axes. That's cool. That's a really niche but interesting job. Yeah, I've been doing that for 2 years now, and we'll see kind of what happens with all this pandemic stuff going on. If they don't know when they're going to open up again, and we're kind of not sure how business is going to look afterwards. But yeah, that's my day job. I also, sell the stuff on the Etsy shop.
Yeah.
Which is actually picking up strangely.
Huh.
I was surprised. Like when all this happened, I was so sure that everybody was going to run out of money to buy like luxury items. My pins are a luxury item. They're art that you don't really need to survive. A T-shirt you could at least say, oh well, I need a shirt to wear, but a pin is kind of an excess accessory.
Yeah.
So I was sure like my sales are just going to tank, and things have actually been pretty consistent. And
that's good.
Had more people buy shirts and hats and stuff like that. But still people buying that. That definitely does not cover rent or anything like that. But that's a side thing I do, and it definitely grown. I'm always happy to kind of expand my shop and add some more stuff. I do a lot of random kind of freelance stuff too, video editing, graphic design stuff. But freelancing, its own weird hustle. I don't
it is.
Do that full time.
I feel on that one. But do you have any axe throwing tips, real quick? I used to do a little hatchet throwing when I was in Boy Scouts. I did it a couple times.
Yeah. Well, hold up just a second then.
No worries. Oh man. Oh snap!
Ta-da.
You're prepared, dude.
Oh yeah, this is one of the old axes we used to throw with. Since the place I work at changed out, these have wooden handles here, and the problem is when you throw an axe, it spins, and a lot of the guests would make it hit like this way, and eventually the wood handle breaks apart.
It snaps, yeah.
The ones that's super dusty and gross. It's just in the corner. Doesn't get a lot of use right now.
Yeah.
Obviously. But the ones we throw with are metal hatchets, and they stand up a lot longer to a lot more abuse.
Huh.
But basically a lot of advice for axe throwing 101 here. A lot of people kind of don't think about how the axe moves through the air. Because if you throw a dart, you're kind of just throwing it straight ahead of you.
Yeah.
But when you throw an axe, it's got to spin. It's got to do that motion. And so a lot of people don't think about kind of how their body has to move to make that happen. So a lot of people will throw and kind of do like a basketball shoot or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like what you want to do is like whip it and swing it, full body kind of motion. So your axe can do one nice neat rotation, hit with the pointy part of the axe. It's kind of like you're chopping a log. It's a log chop motion.
That's interesting.
Next to the cycle as it travels.
Okay.
To your target. And it's kind of about just getting your form. A lot of people, especially big, tough, muscle guys, they think it's all about power, and that's not even a little true. There is a complex equation of rotation and power and speed and distance and da-da-da-da. But I've seen people throw with all the power of Thor, but because they've got terrible rotation, their axe hits, like this, and bounces right off, while their girlfriend comes up and she throws, and she, it's like this big muscle guy and his little petite girlfriend with her long nails, and she'll throw, and it'll just kind of float in and snap. It hits, sticks. One of my favorite stories, and again, I'm generalizing. Usually the guys come in and are all macho and throwing too hard, and usually the ladies are a lot better at listening, maybe not as physically inclined as their boyfriends or husbands, coworkers. But there's always strangers that mess up, what you expect. One of the best throws I ever saw was a mom with a bunch of kids. There's a whole bunch of families together, and this one mom just would not stop throwing bullseyes.
Damn.
And she wasn't like that Fitbit mom. She was just like a stay-at-home kind of mom, but she was.
That's awesome.
She had the arm. But no, so one of my favorite stories though was one of the first few weekends when I was there. I had a bunch of Jersey Shore extras come in, just these big Italian guys with their little Italian girlfriends. And again, all of these guys, I'm 5'7", 5'8" on a good day, and all these guys are 6'4", 6'5", these are big, tall guys, big, huge muscles. And all the girlfriends were shorter than me, maybe 4'11" or something, long hair, big hoop earrings, long nails. They were dressed for the club, but they were so going to support their
attire.
boyfriends who were very excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, they decided to do guys against girls. And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. But they're like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be great. So they do it. The guys are some sort of, Morningwood, that's their name, or something dumb like that. Dumb innuendo pun. I make dumb innuendo puns all the time at that job. Moral of the story is when they stood up to throw, they all wanted to stand really far back, but then they would throw so hard that their axe would spin too much, and it would hit with the back of the axe like that and bounce off. And they turn to me and go, "Why didn't it hit? Why didn't it stick, bro?" And I'm like, "Because you're too far back. You gotta step closer." And he'd be like, "No, I don't want to cheat." And I'm like, That's not how it works. That's not how that works. It's about the rotation. So then, their girlfriend steps up to throw, and she's throwing, and she's like, but it hits. Her aim's not exactly there, but it hits and it sticks. Yeah. Because she's got the rotation down and she listens to me. So the first game was first to 55 points. And we usually get through 3 or 4 games in a night. But because of how many people they were playing with and how none of the guys listened to anything I said advice-wise, the guys didn't score any points until the very last few rounds of the game, and the first game took the entire hour and a half.
Oh my god.
Final score was ladies 54, guys 56. Because in the last 3 rounds, 2 of the guys figured out how to throw bullseyes finally.
Wow. Come back.
Just getting a little more a point.
That's kind of hilarious.
Oh yeah. I miss it. It was fun throwing axes, and it was cool too because a lot of people would come in there and they no one's done that before. It's weird. They don't think they're gonna have. I would even have corporate events where there'd be people who.
Oh god. That sounds like a bad idea.
They're like, my vote was to go bowling, but I guess we're here. I got to throw some axes, and then they get out there and oh, this is fun. I'm liking this.
Any boss vengeance stories? Any boss vengeance stories? A worker turns on the boss.
I mean, it was interesting. There'd be some times where there'd be an event and you could tell who was the head honcho guy that everybody was trying to kind of impress or made sure he was happy. There was one. I mean, again, we also get a lot of people from Manhattan into this Brooklyn establishment of ours. And there'd be people off of Wall Street or whatever, corporate suits and tie, polished shoes. I had one super buff guy go to throw an axe and just rip his shirt.
Oh.
Just Hulk out of it, literally. There was a group of guys, lawyers, and they were all, again, cocky and arrogant, but at least these guys were good at throwing, decent. But they were decent at throwing, but terrible at listening, as most guys are. And they started making bets on each other, and it was weird because some of the loudest guys were the worst throwers, but they would bet the most money against some other asshole in the group.
Wow, that's interesting.
And then luckily it was a big group, so they had multiple ranges going. My coworker got the boss of the night, and everybody kept challenging him, but the boss guy was smart, and he listened to his axe instructor, but also he was like, I don't want to win this money. I make plenty, and if I win the the $100 they're throwing around now, they're gonna ask me to pay for drinks later. So any money I win, I will give you guys as a tip. So we ended up getting $600 in tips from that group because everybody kept challenging the boss man, and he kept winning.
Not bad.
So I was gonna say, besides the remembering how an axe throws, I would also recommend anybody who goes to go throw axes or any other new skill really is listen to the person who's paid to teach you. Yeah, because they probably know what they're talking about.
You'd think that'd be common sense, but
you would think that, but there's a lot of common sense that seems to escape people when it comes to axes.
That's very concerning.
I made that dramatic for a reason. I'm going to share 3 stories about people who didn't use common sense.
God.
All right. I just said the name of my place. I don't know if I actually want to name where
I'll bleep it. Don't worry, I'll bleep it. Yeah, redacted.
Thank you. Yeah, again, the sound effect for that. So, first, lack of common sense. I heard about this through someone else. So it's not my story, it's someone else's story. But there was a first date, and it was just a guy and a girl, and they came in and they met there, and they didn't know each other before all this, matched on Tinder or whatever, and they're trying to throw axes as a first date. And the guy, for whatever reason, is being really aggressive and like trash talking her, and he's like throwing and like getting points and like being like, yeah, bring it, you got, suck it. I don't know, I don't know what he's saying, but he's trash talking her. Yeah. And she's struggling. She's not doing very well because she's never done this before. Maybe it's not her thing. I don't know these people. But anyways, apparently they're just like, the date's not going well, and like they take a break for a moment and they're standing there with their drinks. It's awkward silence, and then the guy's like, so what's a turnoff of yours? And she looks at him and goes, over competitiveness. Puts the drink down and leaves.
That sounds like a scripted joke.
You think so? I mean,
I believe you, but
it's fun for sharing the story. I've heard about a couple breaking up on the range. These two girls, two women were apparently having a fight, and just mid throwing axes, the one was like, "We should break up." It was like, this is where you choose to do this, right?
He has a weapon. Or she has a weapon, like.
Yeah, she's got a weapon. We're in the middle of an event. You got strangers involved now. You chose now to do this. Great. Okay, cool. The last no common sense thing is a lot of people ask us, have people been injured here? Has anybody died?
Yeah.
And when people have been injured from axe-related injuries, most of the time it's that person's own damn fault.
Yeah.
And like the worst injury I ever heard about was somebody who picked up the axe and goes, "Oh, how sharp are these?"
Oh, come on. Come on.
Ran it across his fingers, had to get stitches, did not throw axes that day.
Use a piece of paper. Don't use your hand.
Yeah. Well, and don't run it across your hand. Like, I've had people thumb it or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, I don't think like people do this, and I'm like, do you know what you're doing? Because like I know that seems cool, but do you know if it's sharp by that? I don't think you do.
No. Wow, that I'm actually pretty shocked about. That someone just straight up just like.
I mean, people are weird, and like there definitely have been like close calls. Like one of my coworkers had a guy throw the axe, and it hit in a way that it bounced right back at him, and luckily it was like coming like this. Oh. So he just kind of like caught it.
Yeah. Oh, he caught it.
And then just threw it again.
Wow.
but he was just like, "Dude, your life flashed before my eyes." And the guy was like, "Yeah, I know."
Damn. Is there alcohol involved in this? I'm hoping there isn't.
There is. We serve alcohol. It is largely like we only serve canned.
Oh, okay.
So you got hard, you got ciders and beer and hard seltzer and canned wine. So you'd have to work very hard to get drunk at our place on our stock.
Yeah.
Some people take it as a challenge. I don't recommend it.
No.
There is a bar literally next door to our place, and some people do go there to pregame and then slosh over to us. But we cut them off. We try if we see you're going to be a nuisance or a problem. We stop people sometimes before they even get on the range. There definitely are some times where we there's you try to let the guests throw. You kind of try to let them, if they claim they're okay, you give them a shot. But sometimes
you gotta make that call. Yeah. Huh. That's interesting though. That's cool. It's like a hidden detail I never knew about you.
Well, here's a hidden detail they don't tell you on the website on the flyer. So we had a police officer brought in one day to talk to us about what to do during an active shooter drill. And the guy was like, okay, if I'm honest, if someone really wants to like shoot up a bunch of random people, you're probably not going to be a target. You know, they're going to go to a church. They're going to go to a convention center. They're going to go to a mall or something.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that comes to your establishment is more likely to going to be a disgruntled guest or a disgruntled employee.
Yeah.
And when there's an active shooter drill, you have 3 responses: run, hide, fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's one entrance to this place, and there's no exit, so you really can't run if he comes in the front. And then it's kind of an open floor space. There's a back area you can get to, but it's all kind of open, so you really can't hide from this. So 3, lastly, you all have axes. So maybe, I think, your best option is to fight back. And we were all like, well, you got 2 axes and 2 chances to be the hero today. Great.
Isn't that Ip Man, the axe fighting scene where he's fighting against all the guys like trying to hack him with an axe?
Oh, maybe. There's a few good movies, kung fu movies with
with axe fights. Yeah.
Kung Fu Hustle.
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah.
We get paid minimum wage at that job, so like.
Ooh.
I'm not taking a bullet for that.
Yeah.
Company.
No thanks.
I'll swing an axe at somebody to save my coworkers because they're my friends and family basically, but. Oof. Hope it never comes to that.
No, yeah, hopefully. Damn. Let's see. I do have a few more questions. Oh, okay, so I did want to ask you about this. So not everyone knows this, but you are the guy who made, and I'm blanking on the name right now, the field codes.
Yeah.
So
the SCP Field code.
How that happen? What'd you do? Like inspiration, like what kind of gave you that idea?
Yes, that was actually the SCP Field code. Why do I keep saying it? The SCP Field codes are one of my first kind of pieces of art I ever made for the SCP Foundation fandom. I again, I got into SCP through like an Reddit subreddit, for like creepy pictures or something like that, and there's some. I feel like that must have been where I saw the picture, but somehow I came across like old hobo sign.
Yeah.
And that's like a secret kind of code of symbols that people who are kind of hopping trains and trying to live nomadic in America or survive being homeless in America, they would use for not just America, else too, but they would use these to like mark, if there's a church that gives people free food, or there's an old lady who can, if you tell her a sob story, that she'll let you stay there for the night, or if there's a dog in a place or a police officer that harasses people in this area, they had these symbols that they would draw real quick on the sides of buildings and on concrete and walls and such, and they, would change them. They would kind of have. Kind of like, it sounded like they'd have meetings, basically, like there'd be small groups that would get together and kind of like establish these symbols and then kind of like pass the word along, word of mouth through things. It wasn't super tightly organized. And it's kind of that thing where like, there's probably, all kinds of variations on these and little pockets of communities that had their own symbols, maybe they were more closely knit. For example, like, thieves have definitely used symbols like that, where they have little group of criminals would have signs that they would be putting up, to mark like an easy target or a house they're staking out, something that someplace where they know there's some value maybe. So I saw these, thought they were super cool, super weird, and I thought about, I felt like I was reading just story after story after story about MTFs going into like, weird houses and extra dimensional portals and these weird situations where they lost contact. They almost always seem to lose radio contact and command and end up, they find, the entire MTF dead, or they'd find a shriveled old corpse of an MTF where it's like, wait a second, they went in there, 2 days ago. What happened? Weirdness going on. And I just thought it'd be super cool to like, what if the MTF people had their own little symbols, these ways to communicate with each other, like if they get disconnected, if they lose sight of each other, and it would be something where like only that small elite team would like really, know what their symbols meant, or maybe somebody back in command would know, but like it would be a very tight-knit secret thing. This is a very long way to go around all this.
Yeah, no, it's good though.
But yeah, so I drew that, and the first ones I drew, I got some feedback on the forums, which was like, I don't know if this really fits. You should make it for the Serpent's Hands because they're a bit more like hobo-esque, mystic hobos.
Yeah.
So I made like another version for Serpent Hands and put that on the wiki, and then kind of like forgot about it. And then apparently the SCP Field codes ones just started getting picked up and passed around, and like I even saw somebody like on Tumblr share it, like, oh, this is something the guys from Welcome to Night Vale would use, like Cecil or Carlos would use this. And that was cool to kind of see like what had inspired me come back around.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen them pop up all over the place, and it was kind of cool because there was a few years where I had no idea that anybody even gave a shit about them.
Yeah.
And then somebody pointing out like, oh, there's a ton of these out there. People keep sharing this post. So I was like, what? So I started looking, and like I found it on different 4chan things and creepypasta, Reddits, and sharing it here and there. And then finally, I think SCP Illustrated was like reached out. It was like, hey, you're the guy behind these, right? I'm gonna make a video on these. I'm like, oh damn, sure. So I feel like if they ever did like die off for a little while, I think he kind of helped bring them back.
Bring back, yeah.
Vision.
I know recently, I don't know if this was ever confirmed, but I think you were talking about how Boneworks. You think they actually had it in Boneworks, that new VR game?
Yeah.
Did you ever find out if like what happened with that? Yeah.
So they do have it. Boneworks, the game, it's a VR game on Steam. They do have my symbols in there, and somebody from the SCP Wiki team, which is kind of why again I like the SCP Fandom, is that we've got staff and licensed people kind of working on our side as creators. Somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, do you know that your symbols are in this game? And it's not even like, oh, they also like the idea of hobo code or whatever.
No, it's yours. Yes. Yeah.
And they got in touch with me, and like I'm a bit more lax about that kind of stuff, especially like since SCP stuff is Creator Commons, so you kind of have to be okay if someone potentially using your stuff without properly crediting you. So they reached out to me. They gave me some free Steam codes for the game and credited me in the game, which is my first video game credit ever, which is cool.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Cool for premium designs.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I don't know if you know, but the guy who helped develop Boneworks is Brandon, who was buddies with Freddie W.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know, maybe you have some weird connection to that channel, to the Freddie W channel, and the people involved in it.
I was gonna say it's weird because I don't know, like with the SCP fandom in general, but just also in like creative fields, like you sometimes feel so isolated, like working just by yourself in your little space, doing your own stuff. You put it online, and some randos online talk about it, hear about it. But yeah, stuff goes out there, and people hear and see it, and that's definitely something. I've been hoping that like my work with my podcast can help me branch out and maybe get some work like that with some other cool people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, same here. That's like with my channel, it's like half of it's for YouTube, half of it's like, oh, for my director reel, like this is my portfolio kind of stuff. Which is cool. It definitely is a surreal moment when you see like your thing and someone's like, oh, here's a meme I made of your thing. Like they didn't even bring it to you. You just find it like on Reddit or something. It's like, I guess like the views are there. You see people are watching things and responding and commenting, but I feel like it's different when you just see it out in the wild. And it's just like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's weird. It's like a weird disconnect. Yeah.
Well, there's ups and downs about it because like, I know I've had times where I've like stumbled across some of my stuff that's being used like somebody was selling the SCP Field codes on like T-shirts, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It looked like they didn't credit. They didn't even credit the Foundation, you know. Yeah. And so I had those taken down because they weren't properly attributing stuff. But then I was like, okay, I guess people want this on a shirt. Okay, so now I've got it on a shirt.
Yeah.
And like, again, with the Foundation stuff, like anybody can use your stuff, but they have to credit and attribute properly. Which is kind of kind of that double-edged sword where like I can sell SCP-049 and like the SCP logo as pins, but also if anybody else wanted to get in on that too, they could.
They could, yeah.
And it's that weird thing with like creatives where like we all kind of want to keep control, and we're all afraid of like, well, what happens when someone else gets in on the business too, and such. And as much as I have tried to establish myself as a good seller and the person to go to, I also have to be aware that I'm making a sandcastle, and I'm playing in someone else's sandbox. There are,
and you're reaping the benefits of that SCP brand, like people knowing what SCP is, so that's if that's the price you have to pay, I think it's pretty fair,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I find it odd when artists are very against making SCP art because of the Creative Commons thing, because it's like, yes, you can draw your own totally unique thing that's you own all by yourself, but as an indie artist, like that's very hard to build up a following for your own content, original content. And the SCP Foundation is this massive international community that is hungry for content. So you can make your own thing entirely yourself, or if you are willing to play with the Creative Commons, you can make something that already has an audience that is ready to go. And depending on like what you're creating and like what your style is, like again, like I'm selling this SCP pin. There's other people who sell the SCP logo pins. It's just the SCP logo. I almost feel bad selling it sometimes because I didn't really do anything for it. But on the other hand, like I've got my own versions of SCP-99 and like I made a Marshall Carter and Darkly, not Darkly,
MC&D.
MC&D, McDonald's. MC&D. I made a pin of that, and that's my own design of that.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
And even like beyond that, with your guys' videos, with like my podcast, like somebody else could copy us. Somebody could say, "Oh, I'm making a new FAM radio," but also like I've got my story, I've got my character, I've got my script. Like you can take what I've made and make something new, but I've still kind of got the monopoly on what I make.
Yeah. No, because I've had foreign channels actually. They'll just completely rip my video, no credit. We had a Chinese and a Vietnamese channel. And I'm like, hey, just credit this. I don't want to, and I hate YouTube's copyright system because literally all I want to be is like, hey, I don't care. Just give us credit. But YouTube's like, no, you have to do a copyright claim. You have to mark their channel. And it's just like, I don't care that much, Yeah,
well, and that's the thing too. Like even like the T-shirts that somebody was selling with the symbols, it's like if they had credited me properly, if they had followed the license, I couldn't do anything, but also I wouldn't do anything. Like you're allowed to do that.
It's in their right, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of what allows us to do what we do, So it's not fair to say, oh, no one else can do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, that's something that's kind of, this weird thing about the fandom. I think that I'm curious how it's going to play out over the next couple of years, because bigger and bigger productions are being made of like movies, and board games, and video games, and comics, and da 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 da. And on the one hand, like it'd be really shitty of someone to like just rip off all of your channel videos and put them on their channel.
Yeah.
But again, if they follow the credit thing, like you wouldn't really be able to stop them. But also, like, I think it's one of those things too, where like if you were just being shitty in the community, like word gets around.
Yeah. I think fans have been pretty good at self-policing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Like I've heard about all the YouTube channels popping up where they basically just downloaded everyone, like Vulgans and your stuff and Lord Bung, and they downloaded those and uploaded them again. But like, that person's only regurgitating content.
Yeah.
Like, not putting anything new or nothing on it. So like, your fans know your work and know your worth. So I don't know. It's kind of like a weird ecosystem where I think there's checks and balances.
Yeah.
But it's still like kind of perilously balanced.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is just no one would be watching my shit if I didn't have SCP on it right now, like, or a lot less would. It's really hard to build a fan base from scratch. So like, if SCP and its knowledge, I mean, I'm not doing it just, I also love the content, that's why I make it, but it just helps that like, if I can borrow the fan base to get my videos watched, although I'm not really borrowing, I'm adding to the fan base. So I guess that's the wrong way to do it.
I was gonna say, don't diss yourself. You're bringing something new, but yeah, you're selling to a crowd that's interested already. You're saying, hey, you like these stories? I got more of this. I mean, I think that's the fun of it, is just like how making your own thing is hard to kind of market and tell someone, hey, check out my stuff, it's really cool. Yeah. On the other side of that, how many times do you love a medium, but there's no more stories about those characters? Because the artist is like, we did one season of Gravity Falls, that's all we need. But what if anybody could make new seasons of that, new stories of that stuff, So now you don't have to wait for that podcast that updates once every year. You can go enjoy all this other SCP stuff while you wait for that to come back.
Which is cool. It kind of makes me think of Warhammer. There's a couple other bigger like IPs where like the creators are just like, make stuff, we don't care, and that's where you get stuff like Antares, and you get Warhammer board games, and well, it actually started out as a board game, but like you get the video games, like they're just so like loose with their license. They're just like, make stuff, we don't care.
Honestly, I kind of feel like that's the future. That's where things should go. Again, it's all sorts of weird and strange. I just had a thought the other week about how, like, I know a lot of artists who are really anti-Disney because of copyright laws that they've fucked up, and like I don't know all the ins and outs of it all. I'm not going to say that Disney perfect or wonderful even, but it's odd because like Disney, I understand why they want to protect Mickey Mouse, because at this point, like, they've built their entire theme park and billions of dollars into this character. Like, they don't want to just like let that go suddenly. And also, like, I don't know that the world is missing out on Mickey Mouse stories because you and I can't tell Mickey Mouse stories. Like, I think at this point, like, if Mickey Mouse's copyright whatever went up, like, I think people would just do a big fuck you to Disney and would just draw Mickey Mouse porn all day. People would just do it.
I think that, I mean, people probably still draw Mickey Mouse porn though. I don't think that's stopping though.
Well, that's the thing too, but it doesn't stop it. That's the thing I notice online, is there's so much fan art. There's so many amazing artists that have put in a lot of time into like making art and comics and animations and stories about these characters, from movies and games. Some of the content explores topics that the original source material never could touch. Whether that's Harry Potter, Malfoy, romance fan fiction, or whether that's ponies in the Fallout Wasteland or whatever. Whether you're matching up stuff, whatever. They can explore content that the original source can't, and I think that is really wonderful and beautiful. And fans already do so much art that's kind of like in the gray area of like fan art. It's like, well, it's as long as you're not making any money off of it, or as long as you're not making too much money off of it, or as long as it's, as long as you don't say the name, Doom guy, you can just be like, giant marine guy kills demons. For your webcomic, whatever you're doing. And it's just like, I think the future is, I'd like to see in the future more companies being like, okay, we've got this, Avengers world, and if you want to make some fan Avengers comic, here's a little license that allows you to do something with it.
I mean, it's free marketing, you know.
Yeah.
It helps build hype and all that. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's like the famous story, how piracy saved Game of Thrones. Literally, piracy helped create a fan base off people who didn't own HBO, and then convinced them to get HBO. So that's why I have a very gray area with piracy. I think it's saved so many TV shows and like film series that I think the idea of just ownership, like that natural intention of wanting to own everything, and like that starvation mentality, ironically, can end up hurting you a lot more. So.
Well, I know with the SCP Foundation, I mean, I've got all sorts of video projects and ideas that I'd love to do, but may never have the time for the span for. But I thought it'd be interesting to try to do some topics, kind of like what Sumerian does, talking about different things. And one thing I thought would be cool to talk about was trying to find some of the authors and creators who have had characters that kind of taken off and taken in directions they never thought they would go to.
Yeah.
You know, well, like Dr. Clef and Dr. Bright, 682, you know, etc. There's these big name characters that have been explored and repackaged and taken in different directions from maybe where they started. And it's always been funny when I catch glimpses of that. Like I remember the guy. I want to say that the author behind Dr. Clef was commenting about how he's kind of like, in a playful way, I felt like I don't think it was a huge problem to him, but he was kind of like venting that people always draw Dr. Clef as this like really handsome anime guy, really handsome anime boy, and they're like, no, he's supposed to be like your crazy old uncle. He's supposed to have a dad bod. He's supposed to be this stout kind of thick guy that's not really good looking, or something like that. You know, and I know that the author behind SCP-811, which is the Swamp Woman, they were commenting about how they've had some really weird fans send them weird questions or artwork about that character. Asking about what's the genitalia like and such. Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
But still, like, it explores the idea of like, what does it feel like to be somebody who makes a character, has a direction for it, and then somebody else kind of plays with it and runs with it in a totally different direction you didn't expect.
Yeah.
There's some good to that, there's some bad to that.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. But I always say I love to have more options. You know, I like to see. I'd rather wade through a bunch of crap and find diamonds in the rough than not have it ever made. Yeah. Well,
I know that's why I really like, just like that there's so many communities off the wiki. Like, I think the wiki's great that there's, you know, quality control and there's kind of formats that are established and such, but I think it's really great that there's a lot of communities now that are existent, you know, on Reddit or YouTube or Tumblr or whatever, and you can create something weird or different out there that maybe the whole fandom doesn't care for or doesn't get behind. But you also might make something that someone out there thinks is really cool and they really gels with them, and you can kind of become popular in that way, you know, like Connor, Confinement series. Those characters all exist off the wiki. But most of the fandom knows those characters and respects, you know, that storyline or that world. You know, Lord Bung built.
I mean that's what I find so attractive about SCP. It's so flexible. There's no strict canon. Like, you can interpret it any way you want, which is beautiful. It's like a dream, you know, because I hate the idea of adapting something that's as huge as the SP universe, where there's 5,000 stories, and imagining that, oh, there's a very specific canon and you have to figure out all the intricate details and parts, and it's just like, man, that'd be a nightmare, like, to constantly keep check of everything, you know.
And fans often come up with way better ideas, and I feel like what the original creator sometimes didn't even dreamed of. You know, and like I remember growing up, like, my cousins were huge into Star Wars. I don't know how I got this misunderstood, but somehow growing up, I had thought that Darth Vader was the way he was, you know, in the original trilogy, after like years, like decades, maybe even centuries of like forced manipulation, using the force to like drain life from other people. Like this had its toll on him. He was a mechanical, part man, part machine. After countless battles where he almost died, but came through. And then we got the prequels, and it's I have the high ground. No, you don't. I hate you. I love you like a brother, but I'm gonna let you die. And that's how we got done.
Yeah.
And it's like I like my version way better. So like I think there's
so be sometimes
something to be said about not, just going by what the original creator wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole Star Wars Legends stuff too, where it's kind of like or even a lot of the novels, which are all just like nice knowing you. Bye. I mean they still exist though. You can fake their canon.
I just finished the trilogy. And it was fun, yeah. It's definitely like again explores parts that like the original movies just didn't have space or attention for.
I mean, that's why I personally really like Mandalorian, because it was like the first time there's like an official Star Wars thing that's like I wanted something like this, where it's just has nothing to do with, well, so far has nothing to do with Jedis or Darth Vader or the Skywalkers. It's just a little piece of the world. So.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that kind of goes back to, like what I was saying, attracts me to stories like Welcome Night Vale and these kind of the FM radio, just kind of slice of life inside a weird place. It's just that we love the Star Wars universe, so like we'd love to see these characters kind of, we want to see bounty hunters doing their bounty hunting. We want to see, what happens when there's stormtroopers invade another town in Tatooine, on Tatooine or whatever, or wherever they were.
I forget.
Doesn't
desert
really
place. Another desert planet.
Undisclosed desert planet number 5.
Would have been Jakku, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? All right, we've been chatting for a while. I think we're past the 2-hour point.
Probably. Yeah.
So I think that's a good place to wrap it. But we covered a lot. That was a really nice like variety we got going. Yeah.
Yeah. If you listen back to it and you decide that any like sections, maybe.
Oh, I definitely will. I just started doing clips actually recently. I started with Bung, and then I'm just going to slowly go chronologically. But before we wrap up, is there anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to bring up?
Is it cool for me to plug a future episode of FAM Radio and my Etsy
Anything.
shop?
Anything.
Great. Yeah.
Well, not anything, but yeah,
I won't tell people about my OnlyFans. Gotcha.
Yeah, let's get that on the DL.
It's funny to me because OnlyFans has tried to market itself as a company. They're like creators and streamers and da.
Oh, really?
I only know of it as porn and sexy cosplays.
Yeah.
No, I'm not against that, but it's like the company clearly.
I think that's hilarious though.
Trying to get away from that, which
the
is
disconnect.
Kind of fucked up because that's where they, I think,
that's what made them. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's happened before on other sites. Yeah. So I definitely, encourage everybody who hasn't already to check out Foundation After Midnight Radio, my podcast, which updates when it updates. But there's a few hours of episodes up now.
Yeah.
I'm working on a new episode. Just been kind of distracted in quarantine life. But again, it's a fun story that I've been trying to keep going. I just going to keep working at it until I die, basically.
Damn, lifelong.
I don't know. People ask me "Oh, I'm so glad you came back," and I never left. I just did an update for a long time. I'm active on social media. Toadking Studios or SCP FAM Radio on Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that.
Links in the description.
Links in the description. I also invite anybody to check out my Etsy shop, Toadking Studios, where I sell SCP pins and various designs that I have on coffee mugs and t-shirts and stuff like that, stickers. Yep. And whatnot. I forgot to mention this. You talk about how I got Lord Bung to be Connor.
Oh, yeah.
But part of that was also because he asked me if we wanted any voice actors on his thing, whatever. Something. He needed voice actors, and I was like, hey, do you want the host of my show on your show? And he was like, yeah. So Kyle, my brother, DJ Skip, he voices Stanley in the confinement scene.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember that. I do remember that.
A lot of people didn't recognize him because he does a pretty good job of being like a weird, different voice.
Yeah.
And I definitely would love to work with more SCP creators out there. So, unfortunately, I always have more people interested in working with me than I have roles.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're somebody for a YouTube channel or a podcast or something like that, definitely, get in touch. I would love to see, do a little crossover or something.
Yeah, I'm all about collaboration, dude. That's like my big thing. That's part of why I made this podcast, honestly. So put a face to the channels and the content creators out there.
Yeah, well, I definitely like when because again, we all spend so much time working by ourselves in our apartments, in our studios, and whatever, and we're just kind of by ourselves. We're a community. Whether or not I don't have time to watch all the readings that people put out exactly, but also my fans do.
Yeah.
I respect what a lot of these other guys and gals are putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool to see what people are doing, and I try to support people when I can, and try to collaborate with people when I can, and hopefully I'll just kind of keep making cool artwork.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that's a really nice note to leave on. So yeah,
sounds good.
Thanks for coming on. I'll see you guys next week or next month. I'm trying to do these monthly. We'll see how that goes. No promises.
Weekly's
a little, yeah. Monthly. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Of course.